You're listening to a CNA podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new season of Work It. I know we said that the Leaders Chair would be a limited series, but we've got such good feedback, and might I add, such wonderful guests that we are extending it for another month.
And there's really no one better to kick this round off than our guest today. He is Professor Tan Chye, President of National University of Singapore, and he happens to be an NUS alumni too. Welcome to Work It, Professor.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Professor, I'm going to start with something I noticed when I was doing a CSI on you. Your resume is the dream resume of a typical Singaporean parent. Okay, so...
Oh, really? In what sense?
Of course. RI, first class honors at NUS, PhD at Yale, math genius. I know you have 4 children, right?
Yes, I do.
Hey, same as Adrian.
Yes, same as me.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Is there some pressure on your kids to meet dad's expectations when it comes to academic ability or what's on paper?
Well, thankfully, I think I have my wife to be the moderating factor. She helps with all the matters concerning academic studies for the children.
Okay. So is there any pressure on their part or?
I suspect that they would have pressure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, occasionally I would ask them, even quite recently, right, whether I bring certain pressure
Yeah.
to them. But
Yeah.
so far, I think they are quite comfortable. Thankfully, it's the mom who moderates all this.
Yeah.
And my wife was a teacher.
Mm.
So she knows how to moderate and make sure that they are not totally pressurized.
Yes.
And
yes.
how old are your kids right now?
Oh, very old. My oldest boy is 32. I have a set of triplets. They are 28.
Okay.
Wow, triplets.
It's 1 plus 3. Yes.
Oh, wow.
I guess the only pressure I exerted on them was when they are actually going to university.
Mm.
And I basically said that if you want to go overseas, I can't afford it. You have to get a scholarship.
Yeah.
If, let's say, you want to study locally, you only have NUS to choose from.
For sure, definitely.
Of course lah.
Anything else is a betrayal.
So
Absolutely.
thankfully, I think all of them made it to NUS. So I'm happy.
Yay. I think moderating academic expectations is a really big thing in Singapore. You must admit. There's this almost existential angst about this, right? To do well. And yeah.
Right.
So I think it's important to have a moderating influence at home. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, I think that the Singapore system is too much predicated on success.
Hmm.
A
You have
certain
to
way, right?
score your A's, you
Yeah.
have to do well. And there's this parents' and teachers' expectations too
True.
that
True.
come into the picture.
True.
We feel that in a university, we should allow our students to experience failure. Hopefully in a more controlled
Yes.
Yeah.
In a
environment.
sandbox.
So
Yep.
it's a sandbox where they can experience failure and they learn from it. I think what is important is for every one of students to encounter failure and to be able to pick themselves up, all right, and continue
Yeah.
to push forward.
Absolutely.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
And so we try to come up with programs that expose our students to that. We have our university research opportunities program, which is basically you go to a professor, tell him or her that you want to do a project. Professor will be happy to engage you in a project, and that project will be graded.
Oh, so you can
right?
fail that project?
And you can fail the project, but the essence is that when you do a project, it's not like the moment you start with the project, you get what you want. If you are in the lab, for instance, if you
Yeah.
are going to test certain compounds, it's not like the very first time you do it,
Yeah.
you will get it right.
Yeah, of course.
You may have to do many, many times,
Sure.
but that's the experience and the sort of encountering exposure to failure that we want our students to go through.
To build a bit more resilience, because that's what it is like in the real world, right?
Exactly. In real life,
Yes.
nothing is smooth and dandy. You sure have
And
all
you
the
Exactly.
certainly don't get what you
Exactly.
want,
Yeah.
Exactly.
no matter how hard you try sometimes, right?
So we also have our NUS Overseas College Program, which is a flagship program for NUS. And this program basically, it was started more than 20 years ago. We have had student internships
right.
more than 20 years ago, but we thought it would be quite interesting to put them as interns in a startup.
Mm.
Startups are very small,
Yep.
usually maybe 5 to 20, 30 people. If you're an intern in a startup, you get exposure to many different roles, from the janitor to the
Bao ka liao.
CEO, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
basically see the whole
everything.
full suite
Yeah.
of sort of duties and functions.
Yep.
And that's actually very valuable for students.
Right.
I've talked to many of these students who have gone through. They experience like maybe the first 6 months. So we actually put our students as interns for 1 full year.
Oh,
Wow.
1 full year, usually in their 3rd year in university.
I see.
In the first half year, they see the startup doing extremely well. But in the second half year, it just collapsed,
Oh, wow.
right? Imagine if you are actually working in there, you'll be out of job within a year.
If you had a real
Exactly.
job with a
But-
startup, right?
Yes, but
But it's a
as a
sandbox.
student, you are there for 1 year as an intern, but you actually know, or at least you witness what happened.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
probably you'll learn what not to do.
Yeah, which is a great reality check.
Exactly. So we have, for instance, less than 4,000 students who have gone through the NUS Overseas College program. And they have formed actually more than 1,000 startups.
Oh, wow.
More than 50% are still alive
Okay.
today.
More than 50%.
And
That's
they
a
have
good-
actually raised
more than half.
more than 3.5 billion Singapore dollars,
Okay.
right, in terms of funding. And 2 of them are unicorns,
Oh.
Wow.
Carousel and PetSnap.
Yes. I
They
think I
came
read
from
about
our
the
NOC graduates.
Yes. I think he went to Silicon Valley, right? If I'm not
Yes,
wrong, the
that's right.
Carousel.
That's Carousel.
Yeah, he was
and
on a
then
podcast
PetSnap
with us
was,
before, yeah.
China. Yep. So this is the idea, to expose students to failure, to something more experiential that actually brings them out of the classroom, right? But they are able to sort of link what they have learned in the university
Okay.
with what they experience outside.
And talking about experience, we would definitely like to learn more about your leadership experience, where you have been at NUS for the longest time. We would really be interested to find out, were there any instance where your leadership skills were being tested?
Good question. In fact,
Yes.
many times.
Which one would be the most memorable one for you?
Well, the most memorable one would be quite way back. If you remember, there was one case. I remember the name of the student, but I shan't say it here.
Okay.
And that was way back in 2010. A foreign student
Okay.
who made a remark
Right.
about Singaporeans.
Oh, I can't remember.
I also cannot remember.
Then I was the provost.
Oh,
He made an uncalled for
of
remark
course. Yeah.
about Singaporeans. He did that actually in a small chat group.
Sure. And
but
you
that
know how
was
young
As with
students
all those
are.
stuff, always started in a small chat group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was actually sort of being exposed. And well, the whole world came down on this student.
Right.
And you have the huge number of public actually demanding his punishment.
Oh.
He was a foreign scholar. And basically, people expect us to do something.
Yep.
There's a lot of public pressure. But we have a process.
Of course.
Yes, we think that the student has done something wrong. Right? As you're aware, the public can be very demanding.
Of course. Absolutely demanding.
Those were the sleepless nights because I listen, I hear, and of course the media was playing that up too.
Yes. Okay. We are part of the media.
That's actually very stressful for me and my team. But we held that the true process has to go on. And yes, we do met out the punishment.
Yep.
And for his case, usually we do not sort of review
Of course.
the punishment.
Yeah.
But since there has been so much interest
yeah, and public
in that
yeah.
case, so I have to actually review the punishment. All right. But I thought that it has been fair. Remove his scholarship. All right. We suspended him.
Right.
We also actually insist that he do, I think, 60 hours of community service.
Right. Right.
Right. And I was quite heartened that the community service actually helped him.
Oh, that's interesting.
So after graduation,
Yeah.
he actually went back to continue to contribute
Oh.
towards
okay.
the community.
Okay, so that's a happy
All right,
outcome
and
here.
Yeah.
at his own free will. I'm glad that he didn't really bear a grudge.
Yeah.
I think he knew he was wrong.
Of
He
course.
was a bit too hasty in making such a comment or remark, but he changed. And I think that's the nice thing.
For an educator, anyway.
From a very unpleasant sort of event, you get actually a very good outcome.
Yeah.
And an outcome, I think, is better for society.
But Prof, I can't help but think about this because I used to teach. I used to teach in a polytechnic. And I don't know, maybe the university students are a little bit different and perhaps a bit older. But kids, well, not kids, but young people tend to do silly things. They don't really think through stuff. And so sometimes they just need time. They just need counsel. They just need wisdom and patience so that you can mold them into be better. But of course, when it takes place in the full glare of public, there's no time for any of this.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So
I
that
fully
has
agree
to
with
be
you.
challenging for you, right?
Yes, I fully agree with you. These are young people. Sometimes they may not think through things like the way we usually do.
Yeah.
All right. And sometimes, I guess the remarks can be harsh.
Mm.
But I think you have to accommodate them that, yes, you do make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to be more forgiving.
Yeah.
But again, when you touch on sensitive topics,
You have to be taken to task, right?
and the public can actually get very demanding.
Of course.
And that's something which I think we always have to balance, right? On one hand, I think you have a student whose character, whose value system you try to mold. All right. On the other hand, the public expects something, and perhaps maybe too demanding of that young age. We have to give them time to grow, to develop better. From an educator point of view, that balance is very
Which is
delicate.
why they're in the school, right? To learn, to develop, and
why.
to grow.
Exactly. And the same thing, university is still a place where they learn.
Yeah, I mean, they're not suddenly very smart just because they are in university is what I think.
They may be academically smart,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
But in terms of other sort of attributes, they may not measure up.
Environmental awareness, this kind of
Exactly,
thing, right?
exactly. And I think we have to be more accommodating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to talk about some of the pioneering programs at NUS. You've implemented several of them. What would you say would be the driving force behind all this initiative? And importantly, how do you lead your team to execute them successfully? Because we've seen so many different pioneering programs from many other universities. Not every one of them becomes successful like yours.
Or work, right? You have to have a team that believes in your vision.
Oh, fully. Yes, the team is very important. All right. We can articulate all this vision, but you don't have a good team to execute, then it comes to nothing.
Yep.
So to me, and in fact to NUS, we pay a lot on implementation. And implementation means that I have to actually gather a good, strong team. This usually have to be professors that are also similarly motivated and passionate.
So selection of your team members will be very important.
Exactly. Very, very important. For instance, a special program in science, you have a very visionary Dr. Chan on, who actually put that program together with a group of others.
So the trick is in picking the right people to drive this.
Exactly.
Not easy, right?
It's not easy, but thankfully, in NUS, we have many talented people.
Yeah, of course.
And very many passionate teachers. And I'm passionate about teaching. And I'm also very watchful of who are my professors who have that
Who are your
special
like-minded
passion.
spirits in this
Exactly,
world of
exactly.
innovation and creativity,
Yes.
right?
As part of leadership, I feel that it is very important for me to be in constant touch with the ground.
Yep.
You may not know, but I do morning walks.
Yes, I read about that.
I do morning walks, usually from 7:30 to 8:30.
Okay.
And I would get a senior colleague or I could get a young faculty member.
As in, you just call them up and say, okay,
Walk with me
Adrian,
for an hour."
walk with me.
Yes. I find that is less threatening for a colleague than say, come to my
from me."
True,
office.
that's true.
Actually, that's true.
So when I first started this, my secretary would do the arrangement. The president would like to have a walk with you. And then you have my colleagues asking, did I do something wrong?
I would ask like,
my PA
oh,
would
shucks,
assure
what did I
them,
do?
oh, no. Prof, just ask you for a walk, just for chit-chat. And I find that actually very useful. All right. It's sort of lowers the inhibition. And I'm very casual.
Yes.
All right. And I'm in my shorts, in my t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I'll walk them
Non-intimidating.
around. Not intimidating.
Plus, you don't have to look at that person at his face, right? Because you're walking side by side. There was this article in the New York Times. It's called the walk and talk therapy, where this is the reason why women like to walk with each other, because they're walking and talking.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about walking side by side. So you don't have to look at the person.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I find that very useful. And that's where I learn. Ask them, oh, what interests you? What are you doing in terms of research? What excites you? And I learn as well.
That's great.
I learn as well. I guess one of the joy of running a university is that you get exposed to very passionate students. Young people, actually, they have fantastic ideas.
Of course.
Maybe some of these ideas may not be practical,
Sure.
but I think our job is just to listen,
Sure.
Yep.
right? And if we can help them effect their ideas, all the better. Likewise, you talk to faculty members while they are doing research, we'll be asking, what is exciting in your field?
Yeah.
What are you doing? All right, tell me something about what's keep you awake at night,
Yeah. That's
Because as
such
in,
an intellectual's dream job, I have to say.
No, it's fascinating because you do get energized
Of course.
by speaking to all this. And
Yeah.
that's how I pick people with passion and all this.
So it's his radar.
So your morning walks are your pulse sensing period as well.
In a way,
And get healthy at the same time.
Multi-reason.
yes, I have to make sure I keep my weight down
Okay.
because I've been putting too much weight.
Okay. I must first congratulate you on NUS getting into the top 10 rankings. I feel like it's quite an accomplishment, personally. I'm also because I'm an alumni. So, but I mean, there are critics who say, what is the point of these rankings? They don't really matter. What do you tell your critics about rankings?
Well, to be fair, rankings measure certain aspects of what universities do, right? There are some aspects which are hard to measure. Like, for instance, how much do our graduates retain in terms of their capabilities and skills 10 years after graduation, 20 years after graduation?
Yeah,
Those are very difficult
of course.
to measure.
Yeah.
But there are some things that are more tangible, how soon do they get a job after they graduate?
course.
Those are easier to measure.
Yeah.
All right. So rankings do measure some aspects of things that are easier to measure. It does affirm that we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it must have made you very happy when you heard the news.
Definitely. We knew about this actually quite way back
Oh,
because it's been embargoed until released 2 days ago by QS.
right.
Right. And for QS, for instance, they had a change in the criteria. And some of the change in criteria actually benefits us.
Okay.
So, for instance, they have included 3 new indicators, the research connectivity. So how well do you work with international researchers, right? And they have another one on graduate employment, which is one of the key KPIs
Yeah, of course.
for universities, right? We pay a lot of attention to how soon our graduates get a job within 6 months.
Yep.
They also had a new indicator on sustainability,
Oh,
which many of our universities here also do.
yeah.
All right. So that puts us pretty well, particularly the one on graduate employment. We were placed number 7 in the world.
Yeah, that's
Right.
great.
So Singapore, I think we pay attention to these indicators, and that's why we make sure that we do well.
Yeah.
But it helped us. And then there's one indicator that helped us. It used to be 20%, it's now moved to 10%. And that's the student to staff ratio. Because for public universities, we have huge numbers of students.
Of course.
I have 48,000 students, but we are pretty efficient. We don't use that many faculty members or staff members. We have actually 2,500
Oh,
I
staff
see.
members for 48,000 students. So when you take the ratio of students to staff, we don't measure as well with the top universities, right?
Yeah.
And this one, they have decreased the proportion
Yeah.
from 20% to 10%. So that benefit. We're actually one of the lowest in that because we have actually a huge. I mean, it's not that, it's just that our system, and the same thing with the Ministry of Education, right? Our teachers actually, I would say work much harder.
Of course, they work very hard. Too hard, if you ask me.
It's our graduates, it's our professors and staff who actually made this possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are very, very happy.
Are you looking for ways to make your money work harder? Tips on saving, investing, or retiring early, perhaps? Or advice on big-ticket decisions like buying a house or owning a car? I'm Andrea Heng, host of CNA's top personal finance podcast, Money Talks. And these are some of the things we find out for you. Each week, I get a guest to share personal stories and answer burning questions that help you make sense of the latest financial trends. Go check out the complete Money Talks playlist on the CNA app, Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts.
So the other thing that I want to ask you, and this came about, I think, earlier part of this month, I think Kellogg's UK, they've already ditched degree requirements for most jobs. Now, given the business you're in, you're selling education with a degree that comes with it, what's your thought on this? Some companies are starting to do away with asking for degrees. And do you see this as a trend? Do you see this as a threat? How do you see this whole thing evolving?
I don't see this as a trend now. But things can move very fast. Perhaps this could be a threat in 5, 10 years, but we are not actually standing still. One of the key things is that the external environment is changing very fast.
Yeah,
If you stand still, you're moving backwards.
that's true.
So you have to move.
Mm.
Yes, accreditation may be challenged in the future. What we need to do is that then what else can replace the sort of skills and thinking ability and capabilities of our graduates?
Yeah.
We have actually also changed our academic framework, as I've mentioned. We have formed the College of Humanities and Sciences. We have formed the College of Design and Engineering. The sort of main essence is to ensure that our graduates have a very broad intellectual foundation, spanning from humanities, social sciences, all the way to science and engineering. In the past, I think we focused a little too much on a specialization.
Yep.
But specializations can easily go obsolete. So we are nudging our graduates that you really would have to build your single specialization to a multiple specialization. But perhaps not during your 4 years in the NUS or in the university, but throughout life. Which means that in the current, there's this T-shaped educational framework where the horizontal part of the T refers to the broad-based learning and the vertical part of the T refers to the specialization.
Right.
You need more T's. I'm a mathematician. If you put 2 T's together, you get a pie. All right. If you put 3 T's together, you get the Marina Bay Sands.
Oh, yes. Okay, that
Right.
joke.
But the thing is that you are not limited to 4 years in university.
Yeah.
Actually, you have your entire career,
Of course.
40, 50 years
Yeah.
to build your T's. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why at the start, it is very important to ensure that our students have a very broad intellectual foundation.
I was going to say that university shouldn't just be about the degree per se.
Yeah.
It's the experience, it's the network, it's being exposed to all these wonderful intellectual pursuits, What time in your life can you do that, right? After you graduate, you have to work, forever?
And I think, may I just add that I think what we also want our students to do is to ignite that curiosity, right? I would say that a lot of us are curious, all right? But somehow I think over time, that curiosity may just die away.
Yeah. Or dulled by...
dulled,
yeah.
all right? But I think it is important to reignite that curiosity.
And
Yeah.
keep that flame going.
and keep that flame going.
Yeah.
And exactly that's the curiosity that actually would nudge you to learn more.
I need to ask you about teaching. I know you've won teaching awards. So
Thank you.
I assume you are a fantastic teacher in class. The thing I miss most about teaching is being with my students. There's something just very magical about going on a discovery together. I know, like you said, learning from them. What do you think makes a good teacher?
Mhm.
Is it personality, mastery of subject, combination of two?
Well, mastery of subject is a given.
Mm.
Okay, must be
It's
good
a
at math.
must. You must. But I've thought what is important, it's that empathy. That actually learning is actually two ways, right? It's not just the teacher telling or describing or explaining. It's the students receiving.
Yep.
All right. To me, I see that as challenge in the sense that every student is different.
Yep.
Every individual is different. You may be teaching the same course year in and year out, but the students are different.
Of course.
All right. So it's a different problem altogether. So
Yeah.
how do you get the students to work with you to learn together? That's important. And you need to have that empathy to be able to understand from the student's perspective.
Mm.
All right, how you can actually do better to enable their learning. That's not easy. That's not easy. I can tell you that when I was a student, teaching is very different.
Yeah, they just
But-
told you what to do, right?
I was a student 40 years ago.
Please share with our
The
audience how it
students.
was like back then.
Oh, actually, it was much easier being a teacher then. It was actually basically content delivery.
Exactly, right?
Now, these
Easy
days,
job.
every of our students will have their handphone. Every of the students will have their notebook. If you're in a class, even in a small tutorial class, how do you continue to catch the attention of students
They're
who may be
competing with
looking
their
at their
phone, right?
handphones,
Yeah lah.
answering WhatsApp or whatever,
mm.
all right, or posting on social media?
Yeah.
How do you catch their attention?
How do you catch their attention? Tell us, please.
Because you need to catch their attention before they learn.
Ah,
And then how do you make sure that they learn? Because learning is actually more than just understanding the content. To me, it's about the thinking,
yep.
the critical analysis.
Mm.
All right. Then how do I ensure that my students actually
Activate
are able
that
to do
part
that?
of that,
and
yeah.
that part is activated.
Does that mean nowadays every teacher has to become an edutainer?
Not necessary. You can have actually not very funny teachers, right? I mean, you can have very funny teachers, but maybe
Not
you go
very
in-
educational.
maybe there's less of the content, right?
Yeah.
But you can have very effective teachers who can be very serious.
Yeah. It's not a one size fits all. It depends on the
Exactly.
topic as well.
Yes, so this question is about your award for mental health. Not only did NUS win the Work Well Leaders Award, you also won the Wellbeing Leader Award for setting the tone and culture about mental health. In your opinion, why is it so important for leaders to think about mental health?
We became aware of this during COVID.
Yes.
Occurred to a lot of us that, well, the mental wellness issue is a pretty big issue. I think we have had cases, but I would say they are small in terms of proportion. Perhaps also because people are not willing to reveal
Yeah. To share
their problems, right?
Yeah.
So there's a certain stigma.
Of course.
After the lockdown period, we thought seriously about providing help, and not just to students, but to staff as well, because we are also seeing that staff are similarly affected.
Yeah.
That's why we set up a health and well-being unit.
Yep.
So we are quite fortunate that we got a very good person, formerly from Facebook, to lead this unit. And within like 2 years, he has built a very strong team
Right.
to help us handle the issues of mental wellness for staff as well as for students.
Yeah. And it's important, right? I mean, as a leader, to also walk the talk, right? To be able to say, okay, I think this is important. Even when you feel like you need to talk about it, you do. Is that how, you look at it? Yeah.
Exactly. So one of our first sort of exercises is to actually how to destigmatize mental health. In the past, I think people feel very uncomfortable
Yep.
to reveal that, oh, I have a mental health problem. So we have to tell them that no, it's natural. That there are many people who can be affected by it.
Of course.
All right. But don't keep quiet.
Mm.
We will be here to help you. And one of the important things is how do you set up a peer support structure? Now, our university, as I mentioned, I have 48,000 students,
Yeah.
right? It's a huge number.
Mm.
So we cannot do it just with a group of counseling professionals and the support
No,
managers.
yeah, exactly.
That would not be sufficient.
Mm.
Yeah.
So set up a peer support framework
Mm.
in each hostel. And our wish is also for every of our students, especially the year one students, to stay in a hostel for at least 1 year.
Ah, okay.
We provide training for students, senior students, even junior students, to be a peer supporter. They are very crucial because they provide a support system, and they also provide a sort of a lookout system. They have their groups of close friends, and if one or two of their friends are not behaving well, they could actually approach
Yeah.
them and help them.
Yeah. Who
Yes.
better than the kids to know that their friends are going through a hard time?
Exactly. A lot of these problems also is due to the isolation.
Mm.
Right? If a person has a mental wellness issue, usually we find that this person is usually isolated.
Meaning he's bottling up his feelings.
Yeah, that's right. He's keeping it to himself. He or she may be trying to solve the problem,
But cannot.
but
yeah.
can't, you see, to a situation when it gets out of control. So that's where I think plugging him or her into a system,
A supportive
a
system. lah.
supportive system.
Mm.
And that's what we try to do. In our hostels, we have this peer support framework.
Yeah.
And we destigmatize, basically said that you don't have to be ashamed. This is a problem that
Yeah.
affects a lot of us. If you come to us, we'll be able to help you.
I think that's a sensible approach.
Yep.
Likewise, we do that for staff.
Staff as well.
So let's move on to the rapid fire questions round.
Okay.
You want to do the first one?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, if you could describe your leadership style in one word, what would it be?
Consultative,
Okay.
My turn. Can you share one leader who has influenced you the most and why?
I would say Professor Chye, who was the very first provost of NUS. He is incidentally one who encouraged me also to become a professor.
Right.
Oh, okay.
To me, he thinks very deep into an issue.
Mm.
But at the same time, he also is very good at probing from many and multiple perspectives. He does a lot of this also quite quickly, and he is able to come out with a very fast sort of decision.
Wow.
If
Sounds like he
need
has a
to.
very big brain. Okay. But if you could distill it down to maybe one or two qualities you think good leaders should possess, what would they be?
You must have empathy, and that's something which I think I have a little bit of.
Okay. He's very modest. You know, empathy comes up very
Very often. Very
almost in
often.
every recording, right?
I think every single one.
Yeah. So in your thinking, empathy is to be able to really understand the other person's perspective.
More than that, actually, you have to understand many other people's perspective.
Right.
Yeah, and
Easy, right? Especially if you're a domain expert, some kind of intellectual giant, and you think to yourself, I know this.
And sometimes those
Totally.
perspectives are conflicting.
So sometimes pride can get in the way.
Yes.
So you always have to suppress that. You have to imagine that you're not the smartest person around.
Even though you are.
No.
No,
There are
okay.
actually many people smarter than me.
No, I
right,
mean, I'm
in
just
the
saying that.
university for sure.
Yeah. No, but Adrian is right because sometimes it's completely conflicting to what your fiber is saying. It's like, I know this, right? And somebody is saying, no, I don't think so.
You have to be a bit careful because sometimes I think if you're so confident, you may be blindsided.
That's true too.
And I'm always wary of that because sometimes I think you may do certain things which you know very well.
Yeah.
You could be blindsided.
No, absolutely true.
So you always have to have good team members who are willing to check on you and say, hey, are you thinking right? I disagree.
Yes.
So I need people who
Disagree
who
with
are
you.
not,
Which goes back to selecting
No,
the right team
it
members.
is important to have your team members to disagree with you.
But can I tell you something? It's really hard in the Singapore culture to disagree with the top boss. People get scared. They just find it very tough. But I guess you can disagree professionally, calmly.
Usually I'm pretty calm.
Yes, I can
And
tell.
if somebody disagree with me, I would say, actually, that could be a good point. We can think about it. I'm happy to have people say no to me. Then I'll find out why no.
Yeah, that's more valuable to you as a leader, right?
Exactly.
Okay, one last one before we let you go. What does work-life balance mean to you?
To me, it's work-life integration.
See, all the big bosses say the same
I
thing.
really enjoy my work. I'm sure my wife disagree. I'm very thankful to her and my family for being very accommodating. A lot of my time was spent actually not at home.
Yeah.
But my wife always insisted that, we always have a certain period for family vacation.
Yes.
Every Sunday we'll eat together. Because usually I would have dinner commitments
Of course,
every week.
of course.
I try to keep it down to no more than 3 a week.
Yeah, yeah.
But I often violate that. Even after dinner, I take out my notebook and continue answering emails.
That's because
They
you
left
love
me
your
alone.
work, right? You can't stop yourself when you love work. That's kind of the vibe we get generally with people who are really passionate about what they do. Prof Tan, thanks so much for coming by. It's always very fascinating for me to hear from an educator because it's something that's close to my heart as a parent as well. Adrian, what about you?
And I think I've learned so much, and also keep hearing the same points from other leaders as well on key aspect that every leader should have, the empathy and all that. But I think Prof Tan really is the epitome of empathy, because the morning walks thing alone is very time consuming, yet he does it on a regular. He uses it as a means to not just get to know people better, but also as a way to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Contrast that to some of my former bosses. I don't even see them once a month, let alone morning walks. I think these are small little stuff that
Yeah.
every leaders can really pick up from. And of course, with all that, with his love for his institution, no wonder become top 10 lah.
Yeah, that's right. As ever, my thanks to the CNA podcast team and of course to my guest, Professor Tan and Chye. Till we meet next, have a productive week, everyone.